Is a work session meeting for the Molalla City Council for Wednesday, May 28, 2025. Roll call, please, starting with Councilor Bartholomew.
Councilor Bartholomew present.
Council President Vermillion present.
Mayor Kaiser present.
Counselor Childers present.
Counselor Schenkel present.
Counselor Gilmer present.
Dan Huff, City Manager, present.
City Recorder Christy Teets present.
Engineering Section Manager Sam Miller present.
Assistant City Manager Matt Cortell present.
All right, thank you. Please note that if a councilor wishes to discuss a major policy issue that is not on the agenda, it should be raised during new business for consideration at a future work session or meeting, not during the current meeting. Decisions cannot be voted on during work session. And our topic of discussion tonight is a street maintenance funding. Mr. Cortell, can we have your staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. So this is our first work session regarding street maintenance funding, or really the repaving program funding. Staff is seeking City Council's approval of the public engagement plan provided below. And if you guys want me to slow down for any reason or go over something, please let me know. But in 2018, the city passed an ordinance to provide a street maintenance utility fee. For those of you who weren't here then or aren't aware, that was overturned by a referendum of the voters. And staff recently completed and updated the PCI, the Pavement Conditioning Index, and identified several budget scenarios that would allow the city to increase its PCI incrementally. The table below provides a summary of each budget scenario and their projected impact on the city's overall PCI. Notably, there are many scenarios above, below, and in between the 5-year budget shown in the table. These were selected to illustrate the contrast and how each different scenario is projected to impact the PCI. So as you guys can see, one is unconstrained, meaning, hey, there's enough money to do everything that needs to be done now, or within the next 5 years, I should say. So the 5-year budget on that would be $16.9 million. It would bring the PCI up to 85, and with $0 in deferred maintenance, but obviously, you know, it's over $3 million a year, so that's a lot. And then we go all the way down to number 5, or excuse me, I'm sorry. Number 3, which is maintaining the current PCI, that would be $2.5 million. That's $500,000 a year. That maintains a 63 PCI. With $14.9 million in deferred maintenance and a 56.9% good rate as far as the PCI goes in 2029. So anyways, I won't belabor all of these. There's any conglomeration of those from the 16.9 million, because obviously you wouldn't need to spend more than that if that's the unconstrained budget to do everything that's out there in 5 years. And then of course you go all the way down to our current investment at 1.5 million in 5 years, which is 300,000 a year, what we've been doing currently and are able to afford. And of course anywhere in between there is also going to incrementally change it the same way. So it's pretty easy to see, and we can run any of these budget scenarios too, and of course will, as we start to dial in on potential funding resources and what those might do and how they might impact our budget, so that we can see what those impacts might look like on the Pavement Conditioning Index. The current annual revenue levels in the street fund, when adjusted to remove funding that is not legally eligible for use on street maintenance, is approximately $1.53 million, while costs for materials and services, personnel, fleet replacement, and debt service without the road surfacing program are approximately $1.28 million. This leaves approximately $250,000 to $300,000 annually, because we typically do not spend the entirety of our materials and services, personnel, and fleet replacement budgets each year. So this leaves approximately $250,000 to $300,000 annually for street surfacing, given that materials and services funds are not typically used in full. I guess I already said that. So SDCs plus fund exchange dollars are the sole dedicated resource available for street capital improvements. And I say dedicated resource, I mean that money has to be spent on capital improvements. The other money can be, but as far as a dedicated resource, those are what we've got. At the $300,000 spending level, the city's PCI is projected to fall by 4 points over the next 5 years. And that's system-wide. City staff has budgeted $1.15 million in funding for this program for fiscal year 2025-26, which would maintain the current PCI over the next 5 years if annual spending is maintained at $300,000 per year plus inflation. However, the city cannot afford infusions like this beyond this coming fiscal year. So as you guys saw in the budget, we put about $1.15 million in there for surfacing this year. And again, That's a bit of a stopgap. Obviously, we would like to make a big dent and have some funding to do that. And then we can maintain the current expenditure levels at $300,000 a year. That kind of buys you 5 years of treading water. But it does not bring your PCI up over those 5 years. Revenue sources. Excuse me. We're one paragraph before that. Given these facts, the city's PCI will begin to fall in 5 years at current spending levels, or the city must find additional revenue source or sources for roadway surfacing. At $500,000 per year plus inflation, $200,000 more than the current level, the city can maintain its current PCI. All funding levels above $500,000 per year plus inflation will improve the PCI proportionate to the amount by which $500,000 is exceeded. So, $500,000 per year. If we started that next year, since we have 1.15 million per year, we'd actually bring the PCI up and not just maintain it. Or sometime within that 5-year period, it would come up a little bit. Might not even be a remarkable number. For instance, if in the last year of the 5-year cycle, we were able to infuse 200,000 more into there to reach that $500,000 spending level, it would bring the PCI up, but it would be in decimals, so it's not something you see. So if we're 63 now, we'd be at like 63.2. So, I mean, it would still read 63, but it would actually incrementally rise. Revenue sources. So goal 5 of the city's transportation system plan is strategic investment and lists identify new and innovative funding sources for transportation improvements. Then goes on to provide a list of potential funding resources. For purposes of street surfacing, staff's eliminated those resources that are no longer available, are not eligible for use on surfacing, and or do not provide a consistent and foreseeable revenue source. While staff certainly staff will certainly engage other revenue sources for eligible projects, things like capital grants and that sort of thing, things that we do as they come available. There are very few for streets, actually, interestingly. The only ones remaining for a consistent and foreseeable revenue source are a street utility fee, which can be passed by the council and is subject to the referendum process. Results in an extra fee on the utility bill at a level set by the council. The city currently has about 3,500 user accounts, or EDUs, really. So the rough amount of funding per $1 of utility fee would be $42,000 per year. Local fuel tax must be passed by the voters. Results in an additional tax on vehicle fuel purchased in Molalla. Here's a couple examples. Silverton has a 2-cent per gallon tax, and they raised about $75,000 in fiscal year 22-23. And Canby has a 3-cent gas tax in a little bit larger city, and they raised about $400,000 in 22-23. So obviously Canby's a little bit different situation. They have 99 running through there, which is heavily traveled heavily traveled freight route and 4-lane highway. So they're getting a lot more traffic in there, which means people are pumping a lot more gas. We'd probably be much more similar to Silverton. And these 22-23 numbers were kind of the best that they had as far as audited numbers go. I didn't want to use their hypothetical numbers because that just seems like a recipe for bad information. So additional research would be required to determine what Mollalla's exact funding levels would be with each resource, which gets to our proposal. So our proposal, and we talked a little bit about this, and so a referendum on street utility fees or a failed vote on local gas taxes is costly in terms of both dollars and community trust. In order to avoid these and other potential negative outcomes, staff is proposing a significant public engagement strategy prior to further consideration of augmenting road surfacing revenue. So this is intended to be part educational, right? Part push and then part pull, part gaining people's input and seeing how the community feels about things. And so we can do a lot of education through these public engagement efforts, but also obtain, kind of the city's feelings, right? The community's feelings on the different options that are available, at what levels, and that sort of thing. So what we're recommending is first a pre-engagement. Staff would obtain the necessary information to provide the council and public with the particulars on each option. Staff would present the materials and information below to the council prior to the public dissemination at scheduled work sessions. Project webpage. The project would have a webpage on the Molalla Current that serves as a virtual information hub. This would provide public access to project information, documents, and announcements such as FAQs, revenue projections, impacts to PCI, and more. Additionally, the space will provide a location for questions and input from the community, surveys, and the like. Surveys. Project team will develop and conduct a survey or multiple surveys as needed and advisable to educate the community on the issues surrounding this topic, garner community feedback on the options available, and increase community ownership in the ultimate decision. Local event engagement, city staff would prepare materials to educate and seek feedback at local events, such as Celebrate Molalla. This would also provide staff an opportunity to engage the community in person, field questions and concerns, and provide accurate information. Town halls. City staff would host a town hall or multiple as needed and advisable to provide a forum for questions, concerns, and provision of information. Like local events, town halls provide a great opportunity to engage the community on the issues and increase ownership in the final decision. Community groups and partners. City staff would attend meetings of community groups and other community partners to provide information, field questions, and garner feedback. And public meetings. Of course, staff will prepare materials and reports for planning commission and city council meetings and invite public comment and planning commission feedback on the options. Timing. Staff anticipates this process would take somewhere from 8 to 12 months in total, but can reduce the timeline with reduced public engagement or increase the timeline as desired by the council. So, but we're looking at probably 8 months to a year to conduct the level of public engagement that we think would be appropriate, given the history of this and the fact that it's, I don't even want to say the word, but folks look at this as a new tax, right? And whether it is a new tax on gas, local gas tax, or it's a utility fee, that's the way that, generally folks feel about this sort of thing. So we want to make sure we're doing plenty of education, getting plenty of feedback, and seeing where we stand so that you guys can make the best possible decision based on all of the information that we can possibly gather for you. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And so I was hoping to get you guys' feedback, one, on whether you think that this is an appropriate approach. Two, as far as, doing a large public engagement type of thing. Two, if you had any specific comments, questions, input on the public engagement plan. And three, if you guys had any, assertions on timing or anything like that. And then of course, number 4 is miscellaneous. Anything else that I might not have think to ask?
Mayor,
Sir.
just to add a couple of things to what Mac said. I think, Leota, you were on council when we did the utility the first time, weren't you? Okay.
Yes, I was.
And I think, first of all, the way other cities do their street utility or gas tax, it's all over the map. I mean, you can go to Hubbard and they do street utility and no gas tax. It's all over the place. If you go to Oregon City, it's very intense and technical. They charge based on EDUs, but whether you're single-family residential or you're a high density apartment complex or even the school district, you're going to pay the street utility based on the EDUs that you have. So it's really all over the map. We are literally one of the few cities that don't have a street utility, gas tax, or a parks fee. Most cities have one or a combination of two of those things. And I think if you actually look around, you can actually go to their websites and you can find that stuff. So and the other thing I was going to add was when we held the town halls on this subject originally, and Leota would have been the only one that would have gone, there weren't very many people that came. And we did 4, 5. We moved them around. We even did one on Saturday. But I think people were doing their kids' sports or something, which they usually do on Saturdays. And so, so we just didn't get a lot of involvement there. And so the vote was, or the interest was really low, except for the person who raised the issue with people. And there was a really low voter turnout. The information provided to people who voted no may have been not quite what the utility was going to do, quite opposite of that. And so people voted based on not knowing what was really happening. And I think what Mac and his team are trying to do is address a problem that we think we hear from the community. And that is, we want you to fix our streets. So if that's the case, help us figure out how to do that, because the funding for this particular community is just not at the same levels as it is for other communities. And they do a great job. I mean, they squeeze money out of turnips. I know it's blood out of turnips. It's gotta be money.
Squeeze money too.
And this kind of work is expensive. I mean, it's just very costly. And, I mean, we'd like to do it. I know we hear that from the community, but if we can't figure out how to increase, and we're not asking them to pay more to get less, which is what seems to happen when cities put levies out, you know, you need to pass this levy or we're gonna have to close our parks. That is not what this is, you know. We are gonna continue to do the work that we're already doing anyway, as much as we can. And that's a different question. And I also think that having true conversations with people, if that town hall can produce real conversations with folks about their community, not the folks that live, you know, it doesn't really matter what the folks who live out of town think about the people in the city paying a street utility. It doesn't matter, because they're not gonna pay it. So I don't know why that opinion matters. But the folks that live in Big Meadow, the folks that live, you know, in Southeast, the folks that live out by the Buckaroo, you know, what do you think? Do you like some of the work that these guys have been doing over the last few years? If you do, we'd like to do more, but we gotta have more money. So I think if you change your mindset, because people don't come, we had a town hall, I call it a town hall, it was a public meeting for the UGB, and this place was packed. That's the biggest meeting we've had in Molalla since I've been in Molalla. Except for that one meeting where you and I got griped at a lot.
Yeah, they'll come to gripe.
I can't remember what that subject was, but.
It was the
Camping ordinance.
camping ordinance.
Was it camping?
Yeah, we had this place full.
Or was it the annexation?
I don't know. I thought it was UGB.
Oh.
I thought it was annexation UGB and it turned into camping.
That thing, I think that might have been, yeah.
It might have been that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, where do people really hear and learn and come up with actual information where they can make a real decision? You know, I think you have to talk to people and you have to talk to them where they're at.
Yeah.
So.
Councilor Bartholomew.
I have a couple topics I'd like to bring up on this thing. I think the gas tax is the best option for two reasons. One, it's not putting the burden on the citizens of Molalla, because we do have a lot of traffic. We've got traffic that comes from the Estacada area. We have, if you go up to the corridor where Bear Creek is at and all that, on a nice day, you can't even find parking. I had to go all the way back to the mountain just to park one time. It's packed. So we got a lot of people coming in from out of town, and you know, they're using our roads. So, and then my second topic on it is that the gas tax brings way more money in than the property or the utility tax. So for my vehicle, for example, I usually put $20 in, and that fills. And we could do the gas tax at the lowest estimated amount here. I put $20 in my tank. It fills me up half a tank, so that's 20 cents extra. That's way worth not only the dignity of our town, having nice roads, and that is a huge thing. I come from an area that had prestigious roads. That was a thing to take pride in your town. Plus, it's also the wear and tear on your vehicle when you go through those potholes. You know, it's wear and tear in your vehicle. So I think it's and the number one thing I've been hearing before I sat in this chair, and I'm still hearing, like the city manager just said, is everybody wants their roads fixed, and I've got the same thing. So so that was all I had to say.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So can you explain to us and whoever's watching exactly why we're only allowed so we can only use a certain amount of money or certain monies for our roads? why is that? Why can't we use money from like general fund or something like that? Why are we only allowed to?
Well, I'll let Mac talk about the street funding part.
Because I know people are gonna ask that.
But if you look at our budget, okay, and he can talk about how those funds come in and how they distribute them in the department, but the only fund we can actually use, other than the specific street funds that we have on streets, are the discretionary funds that you have in the general fund. The general fund that we have, which is all property taxes, it's what we bring in as property tax, and what was it, I can't remember what it was this year.
4 million and change.
4 million and change. Predominantly, we use most of that money to pay for our public safety.
Right.
That goes to public safety. Okay, and then what's left over, we divvy up between the non-revenue departments. One of them being parks, you got planning, although planning does bring in revenue, okay? You've got some administrative costs, or some of that administrative costs is borne by other departments. And all the other things that we do in the your council fund comes out of the general fund.
Right.
So what's left at the end is not much left. There just isn't much left, and there definitely isn't enough left in the general fund to transfer over to the street fund that we could do anything with.
Okay. Because I know people are gonna ask that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's their main thing. We're already paying so much in property taxes, why don't we have enough?
Well, and the other thing is, like, if you look at Mr. Miller sitting over there, okay, just because you have this, whatever amount of pot of money there is to spend on the streets, you gotta have a guy like, or a gal like Mr. Miller to manage it.
Right.
So you gotta pay for the management of that.
Right.
And so you gotta spend, you just don't have, hey, this goes to streets, and you can't just throw it out there on the road and it's gonna get paved. Doesn't work that way. So, I don't know if you wanna talk about how that money comes in.
I mean, I think the specific question you really covered, but one of the things I mentioned that I think you might have been alluding to was that there are only certain funds. So SDCs plus fund exchange dollars are the sole dedicated resource available for street capital improvements. What I mean by that is that we don't have a dedicated resource for capital in streets. So could general fund money be used? Yes. How many cops do you want to get rid of would be the next question, right? Or do you want to, or, you know, which parks should we not maintain anymore? Because that stuff comes out of there. So that's really the question there, is there's just not enough money. Right, and I know property taxes have gone up, but so have costs, substantially more than taxes, actually. But, so that's kind of the answer there, is just, it's a rob Peter to pay Paul scenario. As far as what I was alluding to here is that we aren't allowed to spend those dollars from those on anything but capital, might have been a better way to say it. Right, so with street system development charges, if it's the improvement portion of that has to go to capacity increasing roadway improvements. So we can do sidewalk info where there was no sidewalk before, as long as it's a capital plan. We can do some road widening and pay for the portion that got widened out of that. But we can't like overlay a street.
Okay.
However, with reimbursement funds, you can do any capital project in the system from which it was come from, but once again, it has to be capital. So the definition of capital, it depends on whether you're looking at SDCs or taxes, but you know, basically the long and the short of it is that, you know, it has to basically be either a new piece of infrastructure or one that you're tearing out and rebuilding, all right, to reset the capital life of it. And so that's why those monies are pretty restrictive on how we can use them, but we do use them, and we use that, you know, we use them on sidewalks, we use them on, you know, all kinds of different stuff, of course. And all the capital stuff that's in your capital improvement plan from the streets, that stuff helps pay for. As far as the rest of the funds that come into the street fund are state shared revenues or gas taxes. Those can only be used on the street system. whether that's personnel, materials, and services, or capital. So you got a little bit wider berth with those funds, but again, it's fairly minimal and has actually been going down over the last few years with more electrical vehicles. So you see a little bit less gas tax, but not substantially less, but it's not increasing anymore either. It used to increase every year, and now it's kind of gone down. So, so anyways, by the time you've paid the personnel that, maintain the streets, that do the work, that go out there and do the crack sealing, that, dig them up, fix them if something goes on out there, and all of that good stuff, as well as the materials and services costs to maintain them, then you're kind of left with a pittance at that point. But we also include 300,000 of that, which is almost 50% of the money that's coming in for gas tax on street surfacing starting last year and year before, so starting the last 2 years, which is an astronomical proportion of your gas tax to be spending on roadway surfacing, even though it works here, so it works, and that's the only real question is, does it work? And yes, that amount of money does work. If you look at most places' budgets, what you'll recognize is that they're not spending anywhere near that proportion of their fund exchange dollars on roadway surfacing. It's likely mostly personnel and materials and services costs almost exclusively. And then they bolster that. Many of them, like the two I mentioned, I think, don't quote me on that, but the two I mentioned, Canby and Silverton, I believe they have both. They have both a street fee and a local gas tax in order to support their street surfacing program. So, they're pulling these other revenue sources and getting, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, whatever, $1 million. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. That's part of the information that we would provide to the community and to you guys is, hey, what are other cities doing? So that people don't feel like they're being slighted. But that's kind of the long and the short of it is it's that whole colors of money thing. And, with the fund exchange dollars, that can be spent street system wide. The SDCs and the fund exchange dollars, the gas tax dollars can be spent street system wide. The fund exchange dollars can only be spent on capital on the roadways, and the SDCs are in the same boat. Just one's just a hair broader than the other on what it can be spent on. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I understood. I mean, I already knew,
Sure.
but I want to people don't understand.
No, and that's
So
exactly
what we need to
why
get them
I'm
educated on, so, yeah.
And the other
exactly
thing,
why I'm proposing this process here.
yeah, and I think the other thing is, it's like, we're gonna be doing Lola sewer. Did you ever pick up those contracts from?
I did.
Anyway, so we do some street improvements when, in combination
Right,
with
I know you guys.
the water and sewer line projects that we're doing, so we can pick up some of it that way. But that's not we're not gonna be doing that everywhere. But if you look at some of those cities, like he mentioned too, and another one, like I think a lot of people in Molalla do run through Oregon City from time to time. Oregon City has nice streets.
Mm-hmm.
If you drive around Oregon City, but they have a very sophisticated street utility, and they charge everybody based on, trip generation. Everybody.
Right.
Everybody and it's all weighted. Single family homes are paying over $14 for the street fee per month. So, and then it goes up from there depending on what your trip generation is, including the county is paying that, the school district, and all those other public agencies that are in town. So, they've captured everybody, and they've had it in place for a while. So, and they do a lot of the same kind of street improvements that we do here now, where they don't fully build out a street every time they do it. They'll resurface a street the way it is without sidewalks until it's time to do that. And that's what we're doing now here, and that's why we're getting a few more done. But I think the comparison is, you hear people, well, Canby has really nice streets, why can't we? Well,
They got both fees.
and they've had them for a while.
And they've actually come to find out they have issues currently because the utility fee on businesses are supposed to be paying more,
Yeah,
and they have not been
They haven't
keeping
been.
track. Like new businesses that have started haven't been paying anything because their other business, like an addition, was paying it and it's never been upgraded. And so
Yeah.
they have a lot of issues with their plan right now.
but they do have them, and so
Right.
they've
Yeah.
had that money for a while, so it makes a difference over a period of time.
So I got a long list for you, Matt.
Fire at will.
Okay. I guess the biggest one we'll start first is I'd like to see money from utility and gas. And the reason why is kind of like how Canby has it set up. We have a lot of big trucks that are coming through this town. And I know a lot of them come, like you have the Bark Dust place down there. They're coming from Longview. And those trucks are gonna fill up probably close to their port in Longview. They're gonna drive into our town, they're gonna drive away. They're not gonna get fuel here. But yet they're still deteriorating our roads. And I think a utility and a gas, and not necessarily a trips per, you know, how many trips, but some sort of fee set up for the business that can produce off of the type of vehicle or something simple, nothing crazy. But I think between the combination, and then I'm also am for the gas tax because we have probably just as big a population outside the city as we do in the city. And I think it evens it out fairly. And then with doing both, I don't think we have to go extreme on price on either one. It kind of keeps both prices down. And it's also, I don't like the word targeting, but the businesses that are, you know, for example, Marston's, you know, you got all these trucks. Well, Marston's pays a fuel truck to come in and fuel their trucks at night when they park. We'll never see a dime out of any sort of gas tax. Whereas if it was on the utility for Marston's, if they get water or sewer or whatever at their yard, then we would see the resources coming in to maintain the roads. Have we got a study on how many gallons of fuel Molalla is pumping out?
That would be step one, pre-engagement.
Okay. I also like, I like the 12-month process on this. I think this needs to happen on a governor or presidential election just because of voter turnout, which our governor's race is a year from November. So I think any midterm election, you know, May election, those are not the elections to try to get something like this passed. Would there be a way, if we did get this approved, that city staff could put out a yearly report on basically showing what those dollars went to and what, if we didn't have those dollars, what wouldn't have been done? That way, there's, I don't know, checks and balances for the voters so they can see that this is what their money's going to. Because unfortunately, we are no different than what's at the county, than what's at the state, and anywhere else in government right now. It doesn't matter how much trust we've earned. It doesn't matter if that police station doesn't ever cost a dime and we can give all the budget, all the bond money back. People do not trust us. And it's not because any of us have done a thing wrong. We've done everything to prove that we are very, you know, we pinch the pennies. But I just think having some sort of checks and balance, if this does get approved, so that the voters can see this is what got done with this extra revenue. So, you know, it tends to build trust, and I think it'll work forward for future councils. I think in the educational process, one thing that could be added to that is your guys, I'm sure you guys did not reinvent the wheel on this, but discussing your paving contract that you have set up. Because I think that is another sign of showing that the city is trying to save the voters' money. I mean, that paving contract all the way around, if people could understand that, and that you guys brought this to us and said, hey, you know, now we don't pay full price on paving. You know, all the prices are set, and these are the things. I think that would be a trust builder with the public. Things we're up against is really lack of education. I put out some studies over the weekend, just Facebook, and, you know,
We saw.
people, I think, are taking this as this is a bond. You know, their mortgages are gonna, you know, their taxes on their properties are just gonna go through the roof. And that's not the case. We're talking about less than a cup of coffee at the gas station and probably less than a cup of coffee on your water bill. And if, you know, even if it was $3 or 30 cents a gallon and $3 on your water bill, that's all in all, you're paying less than 2 cups of coffee for it. And I think that education comes out, but I think we need to go into it thinking about we're not trusted and trying to earn that from them. The other thing to keep into consideration is I would almost be willing to put money that the county's gonna be putting out for money next year on an election. They have a lot of budget shortfalls, and listening to their budget today, they're talking about needing more money for the senior bus service. And so I don't think us competing with them, especially on the same election for this, would be a good thing to do. I really, when we did the police bond, us kind of competing with ourselves and not having any other money elections would be an important thing to look at. So just kind of keeping an eye out for when they're gonna post up for their bond. Otherwise, that's about the extent of my list.
I kind of like the idea of both as well, little amounts on each side, because get those people who are in the surrounding area to contribute somewhat too.
I think it's oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's important to stress that one reason it's the public engagement is so important here is because with the gas tax, it's really not up to you guys. It's the voters at large, right? So in essence, it's not passing a bond, because obviously a bond's a lot more expensive. But it kind of is.
Yeah.
You know, we have to figure out, do we think it's going to be worth the $5,000 to put this thing on, you know, on the ballot? Do we think the community's even going to pass it? So I think that's kind of what this is hoping to flesh out, and hoping to be able to say, okay, hearing from the community what their concerns are, and being able to address those with real information may help aid in that process. But I just want to point out, because like, it sounds like everyone's, you know, pretty good with you know, looking at both resources and stuff. But, you know, I think after the community engagement part starts to wind down, that you guys will have brand new decision points to make based on that feedback and what we're hearing, and how you want to strategize what you end up doing. So I think this is a lot more, and I only say this because I just, before, you know, if you guys give your thumbs up on how to proceed here, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that what staff is seeing this process as is an information giving and an information gathering process, in order to bring it back to you guys and say, okay, we've got the community's input now, and we've been able to provide them some information that they've been able to tailor their input to the information they're willing to listen to, or that they, you know, and so now you guys could make a better informed decision on what strategies to use moving forward, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was just gonna, you said it a lot better than I did. I wanted to touch on the public engagement, that it's very crucial that we get that done. And today we have better tools than we did 7 years ago. And I think I'm also really encouraged with the last public meeting we had, with the turnout. So we're getting the word out that we're having these meetings. The bottom line is, yes, our roads, it needs further funding, bottom line. How are we gonna do that? I agree too. We need to look at both sides, both sources, and possibly engage both of them. But let's do our best job possible of engaging the community, get their input, and educating them at the same time with everything that's been discussed so far. So, yeah, I'm all for the pre-engagement. Let's move forward.
Sounds good.
Mayor, I also think that you can think about where those engagements with the community come in different areas as well. You know, we have some things coming up this summer. You know, we have Celebrate Molalla is gonna be there, and we're gonna have a city booth there, so we can make that part of what we engage with people in. And sometimes, you know, you don't get everybody from town, but, you know, and then National Night Out is coming out. And so you have all those opportunities, and y'all talk to people. You know, you might be sitting at a baseball game where the team you went to watch wasn't hitting the ball, so there's nothing to watch, right? So you might as well talk about street fees, you know, with the person you're sitting next to and find out what they think. And I really do think that personal level conversation can be helpful here.
The other thing that we could look at, and I don't know what the budget would be for something like this, but a political marketing specialist, where, you know, as far as putting out, like when we do the town halls, they can put out a flyer that could go out to everybody in the city, you know, to advertise it. I mean, I know we put it in the water bill, but honestly, I have Express Pay. That water bill envelope shows up, it goes in a stack. I don't see, you know, and whereas the mailings, you know, telling them, hey, there's a town hall. All you have to do is put town hall, we're talking about gas tax, and I'll bet you could fill this room.
Yeah, I would suggest, if I may, I think collectively between the folks we have working for MAC and what we have at City Hall, what we found during the police facility project was we had better ideas internally than we were getting from the specialist.
The first one.
And they cost money.
The first one.
And that one cost money.
That one cost money, but the second one, I think, did a lot better job.
Well, that's true. I don't disagree with you.
I don't want to slam Rebecca, because I think Rebecca came in and churned everything around.
She did, but she was still using the same information that we produced at a staff level,
And that was a really close election.
It was.
I don't want to do that one again.
Yeah.
So are we all thinking move forward?
Yes.
And at least, everybody thinking an 8 or 12-month process? Or should we go by date, say election November of '26? That would be the next governor's race, that would be the governor's race. Sir?
I think we should do it as soon as possible. That's just, why wait so long?
That you and I will disagree on, and it's because of, after being on the bond committee for the police station, and we even got a late start on that out of respect for the bond that was on the ballot before us. I think taking the time, putting something on the ballot is gonna cost us, Christie, $7,000 to $9,000. And if we're gonna put something on the ballot, I'd rather take all the time we need to make sure we're ready, it's ready to go. Because once it goes on the ballot, if it loses, we just dumped that much money.
I was just going off the, you know, you said the minimum 8 months. I didn't think it would take longer than that to.
Well, the next
almost a year.
next election is this November, and it's not, if there is even an election this November, it would be, there'll be primary and general next year. There'll be elections in May, but the ones in May are not that good next year.
You may, you might want to, we do goal setting in January, right? I mean, if it's an 8 to 12 month process, with what Mac is saying, you could use the goal setting session in January as your kind of, where are we?
Progress report.
Kind of.
And just notably also, you know, one of the things I mentioned in there that I think is important is that, you know, for each month we shorten this thing, the public engagement needs to shrink because we don't have the manpower. We're building a wastewater plant and a sewer, you know, police building and you know,
We
get
got
ready
time.
to do intakes and
Yeah.
and all the other stuff UGB process, like we can't just say, okay, well, let's fit this all into 3
Yeah,
months.
they're not gonna start tomorrow.
Right, but the one thing we do have is time.
Yeah.
I mean, going forward,
And if I will, we need to be strategic.
right.
Need to think about it.
Yes.
So,
You know, we do need to get going, yes, and, you know, as soon as possible, but strategic at the same time.
I agree, I agree.
I think my recommendation on next steps would be to give us, to give staff, to kind of determine when the next work session is. I don't think it makes sense for it to be at the very next meeting, because we need some time to gather information so that we can bring back and show you guys some of the information and start to work on developing, our public facing, some of our first public facing products, and start to talk about those so you guys can, you know, help amplify those, as well as kind of see what the situation is on the ground. Because like one of the things I think is really important for people to know is that all the cities around you have this stuff in place. That's like a huge thing for people to know. In my opinion, I mean, I could be all wet. I don't know. I do my best, but I just think it's really important to know that, because when I'm looking at something and I'm like, wait, another new tax, and it's like, yes, but everyone else has it, and that's why when you drive down a street there, you think it's nicer. You know what I mean, or whatever the case may be. I think that's a really important thing to represent, and we need to get good numbers and talk about what those produce for those places and that sort of thing.
So do you think you could bring this back, say by end of July? Would that give you enough time?
I mean, I would actually
June's next
say
week.
we could go before that. I would say we could go, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Corthell, we do have a work session tentatively scheduled for June 25th for this item.
I think that's very
Okay.
reasonable.
All right.
To start
I
presenting.
just don't want to put a rush on you guys.
No, that seems very fair. It gives us, you know, all of 4 weeks to pull some info, and we've got some folks that can
Okay.
help out with some of that work. So.
Perfect. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to give my thoughts on all of this. I listened to everything. I saw your poll on Facebook, not no, but hell no, you know, and
Yeah.
all those sorts of things. And I want to speak for two demographics, both of which I'm a part of. Number one, that's the elderly, 65 and over, people who are living on Social Security, and maybe only Social Security and a small income at that. And also for those who are of the lower income realm, of which we have quite a population here in Molalla. That's been pointed out in demographics before. Thank you, Christy. And you know, it's like when we sold the police bond, and like you alluded to earlier, it's a cup of coffee a month. It's a cup of coffee a month. But when I got my tax statement, that was not a cup of coffee a month that I saw staring me in the face. Because I own my home, and so I saw what a cup of coffee a month amounted to, and I had to come up with all of it right then, not 1 cup a month. So, so sometimes I think when we say things like that, we're tending to poo-poo people. That we're just, oh, it's just a cup of coffee a month, don't worry about it. And that we need to be conscious of that, just a little bit aware of that. And also, if you're a renter, which I also rent, I own a mobile home, it sits on rented property. So my rent is going up because my landlord's taxes went up. So that is every month that I'm seeing an increase. So just from the school bond and the police bond, last year was a killer for people on lower income and or fixed income. And that's something that we need to be aware of. And we will have a hard time convincing people in those demographics that they need to pay to fix the streets. The gas tax is going to be a little bit easier to swallow than a monthly utility fee would be, because you're right. We go and we fill up the tank, and gas fluctuates so much, you know, you don't even look anymore. You just do what you got to do. It's $20 or it's fill it up and we go on our way. And so that could be absorbed much more easily. But I think we're going to have a hard time selling a street utility, because we're still stinging fresh from those 2 bonds last year. It's going to take a while to get over that. And, pardon me, I don't know how long, But I do think that your poll on Facebook was quite telling. And before, when we did community engagement, you would think more people would come out, and I agree we can take a different tack this time. The citywide mailing is a great idea if we, hit them with something other than in the utility bill. Something really bright and bold that says we're gonna talk about street fees. We might get some people out. But, and we are somewhat ahead of the game because you've already got a recent PCI. So that's a good thing when it comes to this timing, because when we started last time, we started the project with getting the PCI and going forward. But those are things that were on my mind about the whole thing. Would I love to see all of our streets up at 75%? Yeah. But can we all pay for it? I just don't know. And I don't know that people want to see it badly enough to make more sacrifices than what we've had to make the last year.
I talked with a few of the people that were the hell knows, and some of them were my friends. And there was a serious lack of education. Like, one of the comments I got back is that this process needs to be privatized.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, I saw that.
And this can't be privatized. People need to quit listening to Lars Larson so much. And, understand that city has to oversee this. It's not, we can just pay somebody to take care of it. And again, if people were listening and watching us, they would know that part of this whole entire process, we have privatized with our paving contract. That is something a private company would go and do, not a city government. And so with this project, I really think this is gonna be a huge education, because we do have facts that we can present to the public to show that we are being good stewards of the money, and that the money's not going where it needs to go. And, the gas tax, the gas tax, I don't think is gonna bring, unless we charge 50 to 75 cents a gallon, I don't believe it's gonna bring the results that a combination of both would be. And, it's, even if it was $1 on the utility bill. My water bill, I think, is $114 a month. I think I can handle $115. That $1 going into the street fee, and then even at 10 cents a gallon, my car takes 8 gallons. So it's gonna cost me 80 cents more. Yes, ma'am. I'm getting shut down. Go for it.
You're almost getting a red card, so.
I know, I'm gonna get kicked out. So, anyway, I'll get off. You had something to say, real?
I was just gonna say our other biggest problem is, again, besides with the education, is people assume the main highway is our responsibility, and that's the worst street in this town. So
Oliver Drive's pretty close.
well, yeah. There's a few off of Tolliver, but so it's gonna be a huge struggle, because we still won't be able to fix that street. And
I think, just to wrap it up, again, public engagement is really crucial
the
here
only
to
way
see
we
what
can do
the community has to say, including the demographics that Counselor Childers brought up. So, anyway.
All right, if there's nothing further.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, sir.
one more quick one, sorry. So I also want to let you guys know that part of the reason that staff asked you guys to approve a budget of 1.15 million this year for street resurfacing is, one, because there's enough funding to do it, and the money needs to get on the ground, not sitting in a bank somewhere, right? It needs to get on the ground where these people need it. But the other reason was to buy you time to strategize if you needed it, if you wanted it. So that was why I kind of stressed that this big investment, combined with our normal investment in the next few years, we're holding serve. So it gives you guys some flexibility to say, hey, we're ready to go for it now, if that's the case, when the public information and that feedback comes back. Or, hey, people are leery, and this thing's not gonna work. So let's go ahead and, you know, belay this a year or two. We're not gonna lose ground. We're just not gonna gain any. And so that was really a big part of my strategy and thinking when I was developing that portion of the budget this year. So I just wanted to be clear on that. I don't think I emphasized that well enough in my
All right.
presentation.
If there's nothing further, we will see you back in June for this topic.
Yes, sir.
All right. I will adjourn this meeting at 6:56. Good evening. This is a regular meeting of the Molalla City Council for May 28, 2025. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to remind all participants, including staff, elected officials, and members of the public, that Robert's Rules of Order will be enforced in this meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. Audience members, we request that you silence your cell phones and not conduct side conversations during the meeting. Thank you. Up next, we'll do roll call, beginning with Councilor Bartholomew.
Councilor Bartholomew, present.
Council President Vermillion present?
Mayor Kaiser present.
Counselor Childers present.
Counselor Schenkel present?
Counselor Gilmer, present.
Dan Huff, City Manager, present.
City Recorder Christy Teets present.
Seth Kelly, Water Quality Superintendent, present.
Associate Planner Jamie Viveiros present.
Matt Corthell, Assistant City Manager, present.
All right, thank you. Up next, we'll consent agenda, which consists of the council meeting minutes for May 14th, 2025, and Clackamas County Department of Transportation and Development solid waste update. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and second. Is there any discussion? All right, Christie, will you call the roll?
Counselor Gilmer.
Aye.
Counselor Schenkel.
Aye.
Counselor Childress.
Aye.
Council President Vermillion.
Aye.
Counselor Bartholomew.
Aye.
Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Thank you. Vote passes 6-0.
Up next, we'll have a presentation, wastewater treatment plant and water treatment plant update. Mr. Kelly, can I have your report, please?
Yes, Mayor, Council, good evening. So the Oregon Association of Water Utilities provided us with a plaque a couple weeks ago. So I just wanted to highlight that they gave us that plaque because it's 40 years of membership with that organization. We do some partnership work with them as far as being a member with them. They're able to help assist with process control questions, and then recognize individuals, kind of to highlight in 2023, Mitchell Jaspers, who's now our lead wastewater operator there at the plant, was recognized as Rookie Operator of the Year. And then James Clifton, who is our senior most operator now at the water plant, was recognized as our lead, as the Operator of the Year in 2024. So just a good relationship that we have with them, so wanted to highlight that. Also, last week, the West Tech engineering team came and offered us a practical application and a sit-down in class, and we did it in this room. A few hours of training, and then some practical application with our treatment plant, because it is a West Tech plant. So it was kind of nice because we were able to get some of our staff members free CEUs, which is required for renewal and their certifications, as well as get them some very technical training from the folks who helped design that facility. And then I'll provide an update on the wastewater treatment plant and the progress we have there. So move into our presentation here.
Excuse me. Counselors, you have these tiles in your packet, so if you start on page 36, you'll be able to see what is on the screen behind you also.
Page 36 of the presentation, or of what, Christie?
Sorry?
Page 36 of which?
Of your packet, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
So, over at the water plant, I want to highlight some of the work that our crew does there. Twice a year, the staff will clean out the buildup inside our filter tanks. And then they do a thorough backwashing of them before they put them back into service to start producing water for the city again. after doing that, so they're able to do one at a time. And then some pictures from the Clackamas Community College. They came and did a tour, so they have a program there called the WET program, which is Water Environmental Technologies, and they're studying to create these operators that there's a real lack of in the field right now, and they're the last college providing that program in the state right now. So it's pretty neat that they're pretty close to us. We're able to offer them a tour to help them, and then in turn, we're looking to hopefully incorporate doing some internships with their program, and then get that mutual, they can learn and we can get some work for us, so. And then some photos from the West Tech class. As you can see, we're doing the class in here for a few hours, then went out and did practical application. Staff from 13 different communities attended. So it's pretty neat to see folks from all around that have these West Tech filters that they're all slightly different but the same in concept, so they're able to do a training, get operators free CEUs as well as technical assistance for any of them that might have had questions. Some of this practical application, the hands-on training, they provided some tools in the class for finding out your efficiency measures on your filter, ways you can improve, reducing chemical usage, and also increasing water production. So they took us to our facility, and we were able to run one of those processes for them to, all the operators, to see exactly how that works, more than just seeing it on a screen, seeing it in real life. And then we'll get to the fun part, the water plant, or the wastewater plant. Currently, what we have now is a pre-aerated lagoon system without the pre-aeration part, because in October 2022, we had to decommission that aeration basin because it was falling apart, literally. We've got headworks. These will stay on with the new facility and continue, and their capacity is projected well into our 20-year progress of this new facility that we're building. This aeration basin is, like I said, decommissioned in 2022, and you'll get to see the change from that to what we will have here shortly. This transfer pump station will remain, but it's getting upgraded to new pumps. All that manifold part that you see on the top with those pipes will all get changed out to adjust to what the new is coming in. And then we've got lagoons, which will be converting to clean effluent storage.
Doesn't that one picture on the left make it seem like you want to just go for a swim in the warm evening?
Not.
Good one, Brad.
Yeah.
The water is warm.
I know how to make it look. Hey, it's nice and warm. The DAFs, these are going to be going away, but they currently, with the addition of coagulant, which is something that brings all the solids together, and then pushing air into the tank, it floats it up, and it thickens it, and then you'll remove solids off the top side with skimmers. And predominantly, it's algae that those are removing now. And then sand and anthracite coal, mixed media filter tanks. These will all stay in place until we can decommission or remove them, but they won't be a part of the new treatment process when we get to it. Disinfection with chlorine. This pool on the left is the chlorine contact basin, so the water is disinfected in there, so that might be a little better place to take your swim. And then our effluent pumping station, pretty neat picture in my opinion, this one on the bottom right where they were removing that pump this last year to have it rebuilt. Those pumps, to their benefit, lasted 25 years before we had to rebuild one. And so we got one rebuilt, and then we're looking at budgeting in future years to get the other one rebuilt. And a third one will go in phase 2 or 3 I can't remember which phase it is off the top of my head, with this new plant. So it won't happen now, but down the road, when the capacity requires it, there is room to put a third pump in there to be able to add that. And then this is some of the future expansion and what you can expect. Top left is when you open a UV bay, so you can see where those UV bulbs will be going down in, and then you'd pull one tray out at a time to do your maintenance and be able to keep that whole line, in operation while you were doing that. And then that middle picture is what's called a drum filter, which we'll get 2 of those. They're discs and the water's able to flow through them, and then when the filter starts to get plugged, they'll actually take the clean water, push it back, clean that stuff off, it goes off the waste, and it'll go through the treatment process again, and then it starts back up and starts filtering again. This top right one is what we can expect to see with a screw press for dewatering and making cake. And I'll go into that a little bit more in a bit.
Doesn't that make you hungry, Dan?
And,
I know what that cake is.
Biosolids cake, yeah.
Good for the garden.
It would make some great vegetables. This bottom left is the front of that SBR, where you can see it starting to take form. And then that right picture is the footprint of the new plant and kind of what it'll look like from a plan perspective when it's all said and done. So here's your SBR pad coming together. Top left, they're starting to scrape the dirt away from the surface. And then they started digging it out in that middle one. And then this is where they got it to where it was at grade for the subgrade. And then started bringing that rock back in. The bottom of it's 2 foot of rock and then 2 foot of concrete. And then there will be walls from there, and about from floor of concrete to the top is 18 or 19 feet to the top catwalks that'll you'll be able to walk over the top of those basins. So you can just see the forming and the rebars going in. As of this morning, they got the final pour on that front part. So that, from my understanding, is the most complex part of the floor on that pour because of getting everything lined up. So the next portion should pick up pace, which is going to be nice. Even though we are on schedule, it's just nice when things go faster. Some site piping, we had a hydrant installed on the north side. We didn't have one prior, so on a safety standpoint, it's definitely an improvement for us. And then this right here, there was a transition. So when you go from old stuff to new stuff, not everything's going to the same place anymore, so you got to reroute it. So that was what that was about. And then these pictures on the bottom left, you've got transfer lines going all over the place because you've got a new water line going up to feed the new plant. You've got new effluent lines coming down, and you've got a new transfer line from the pump station below up to the new plant. And then just for the sake of it, that's what a manhole installation looks like. They put a big guard around it so that way while they're working in there, nothing can fall in and crush them for safety, and then they get it installed. We'll pull the person out, start backfilling, and then pull that piece out of the way. The control building is actually even further today than it was in this picture, but I started making this a couple weeks ago. So there's so much conduit, I don't know how anybody keeps it straight, laying on the ground right here now. To say it's a rat race is an understatement. And then this top right was them micropiling. They're drilling 20 feet down into the ground, and you can barely see it, but in this bottom right picture, there's 66 little micropiles down there, and those are what's going to anchor the floor of our equalization basin down to the ground. So it's rebar grouted into the ground, and then a little plate sits here, and then they'll pour around those, and they'll anchor it down. It's pretty neat. It was impressive to watch them test it. They pulled with 300,000 pounds of force upwards to see if they could break it. And they started crushing the timbers they were using to set up the piece of equipment to test it on. And they had to give up because design on it was like 50,000 pounds, and that's all it had to meet. And the guy was like, I want to see if I can force it to break it, and he couldn't. So we got a good crew out there for doing that.
And Seth, this is the old aeration basin.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. So the footprint of this is about a third of what the old aeration basin was. And it's not really a treatment process. The cool thing about this is, in order to save costs, the design engineers, rather than oversizing the treatment plant and oversizing the pump station to get it up there, they built this so that it'll match the capacity flows. So when you get a rain event and you get those increased flows that come, when you get the I&I inflow intrusion events, it would handle that increased flow and then essentially meter it with the pumps at the capacity that the new plant can handle versus having to oversize the whole plant to meet that flow. So coming soon, they'll finish the conduit, they'll get the control building footings in, and then plumbing, actually some of that is done as of this morning, but there'll still be a little more to do, and then biosolids is expected to happen this summer, and they'll be removing the majority of what's needed, or all of what's needed. I should say they'll remove everything that's needed to make the one clean effluent pond, and then our hope is to remove some out of that other one, and then the rest of it will happen in a later phase as the funding's there. Any questions?
Seth, I have a question. Is the headworks gonna stay on the north side, or is that eventually gonna come to the south side also?
It'll stay on the north side for the foreseeable future. I guess at some point, if there was a capacity concern, then we could reevaluate if it made sense to move it.
Okay.
But would be a significant amount of money to one, move that equipment, and two, that equipment is, one of them's 20 years old and the other one's 5 or 6 years old. And I would still say there's some of the best screens that are in the business.
Okay.
For facilities that I've operated and or seen, they do as good or better of a job than any of them. It's actually one of the more hands-off screens that you have to deal with.
So are we gonna have to keep staff on both sides of the plant? Or just one side, since you're gonna have equipment kinda running on both sides, or do they just float back and forth?
So they would float, but the nice thing is, because we have a SCADA system, which is automatic integration, you can operate the majority of the facility now through a screen. And so as far as those adjustments go, you can make those adjustments via remotely. But with the new system, we're actually going to get tablets that the operators could walk around with, and they can actually make adjustments off of those tablets while they're walking,
Okay.
doing those things. And then there'll be hand controls at those sites as well to be able to override anything. So to answer your question, there'll still be the same amount of staff. We're bringing on another operator this summer or this next fiscal year, but I don't anticipate much of a need at this point beyond that because of the integration and the automation that we'll have with this facility.
One last question. And this might be for you, Matt. The money that we're gonna be saving from going from chlorine to ultraviolet light, what do you see that savings as? From buying, not having to buy the chlorine and vitamin C?
It's difficult to say what the net is because there are some increased bills as well with the new plant, like power draw. But I mean, I think our annual budget right now for chlorine and chemicals is like $295,000. So that'll be, we'll have some on hand in case of emergencies. If there were, some sort of an issue that we needed to be able to chemically treat, we definitely want to have some on hand. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, that cost will pretty much dissipate, but then some portion of that will be offset by increased electrical fees. So, and then the other thing is that for you guys aren't probably used to, well, you're either used to like $1 million a year in biosolids or zero. Before that, you're actually gonna have an amount that's appropriate and budgeted to remove the biosolids. Because if you guys recall, one of the main issues that resulted before our time, was that biosolids weren't being taken out of lagoons and they were starting to get full of them. So, you know, there'll be a budget for that too. That's not the $1 million that you guys have been spending per year to play catch up. So there is some offset too, but I would have to imagine that the net will be some sort of a positive outcome for the city. I'm not exactly sure what that is yet. I'd be lying if I told you.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? All right, well, thank you, Mr. Seth.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mine's listed for question, Mayor, and I just wanted to kind of acknowledge Seth quickly here, and, you know, obviously he's not gonna toot his own horn, that's my job. You know, Seth is now the manager of both our water treatment plant and our wastewater plant. He's fully certified and qualified basically to the top that you can be in the state of Oregon on both plants as of today with water. So we're really molding your organization to create redundancy, and Seth's position and him filling it, has been one of the things that's allowed us to do that, so that we have both a DRC that's an operator that works hands-on at the plant every day, but should they ride off into the sunset for one reason or another, we have an automatic DRC that can take their place immediately in the form of the manager who's hands-on at the plant every day and has the capabilities and qualifications to do that. The other thing that he didn't mention is that those 2 awards that were given by OAWU were because Seth put those folks in for those awards because he believed that what they were doing was worthy of being awarded. So he did that work. OAWU just took him another 10%. And then, you know, I think he kind of undersold the Clackamas Community College plant tours in the West Tech class where they all asked to come out here. That's a new and different look for Molalla and our wastewater system especially. Our water treatment plant, I think, has always been, you know, kind of envious, you know, an enviable facility. But our wastewater treatment plant is becoming that, and that's under Seth's leadership. He's managing the technical sides of both of those projects, the wastewater treatment plant project, as well as the water intake project. So he's the city's technical lead on those projects as far as, hey, how does this work into our treatment processes? Is this gonna work? Where do we need to route that? This kind of stuff. So it's a very heavy lift, as well as taking on management of 2 sets of staff, 2 sets of qualifications and certifications, 2 sets of regulations from different agencies within the state. Seth has taken it on seamlessly. And honestly, I have to be honest, before he did, I was having nightmares about how I was gonna make that happen. And Seth stepped in and hasn't missed a beat on anything. In fact, he's greatly exceeded expectations. There's some other things that he's doing that you guys might not be fully familiar with. Things like both plants are now on the energy buyback program with BGE. So when they have a high electrical event, they can call and ask us, hey, can you guys throttle down? And if we don't have to, if we say no, well, no, we've got wastewater that we've got to get out of here. That's no problem, but typically we can throttle down for those things. And they've been bringing in, you know, several $1,000s on multiple occasions from each plant coming back into the city that wouldn't have been there before. He engaged these programs and learned about them and then got the city involved in them. So I guess some other things that we're looking at too are the generators now. You can get like 40–50% of your generator, you know, these large $300,000 generators, you can get that paid for, and then PGE does all the maintenance on it. It's just that if they want to use power and you don't need it, and they pay for the fuel and everything, they'll come in and, you know, they can turn it on and send it back into the system. So, and again, the city reaps the benefits of that because they do all the maintenance on that generator that we typically do and pay for. They pay for the fuel in that generator, which the city typically pays for. You know, so, and you're able to get a generator that's, you know, a cut above what we would typically get, for the same price or even a little bit less from the offset that PGE will provide. So, you know, some of those things I think that Seth has created or continues to create a kind of a premier program. And I think that is evident in the fact that we now have, you know, the last school in the state that's teaching wastewater. They're not going to Oregon City, right? They're not going to West. They're coming to Molalla to show how our plant operates and how our people do business. When West Tech Engineering wants to put on a filter class with the Trident filter system, they're not going to Salem, they're not going to any of these other places, they're coming to Molalla. And I think that really speaks volumes to the class of our, not only our organization, but our people and our program and the hard work that Seth's done. And I've been remiss if I let him get through this presentation without mentioning that. So I just wanted to say those things. Thank you.
Well done, Seth.
The other thing, the best part of Seth that no Mac wouldn't mention is he's a Duck fan.
Hoorah.
It's actually that he's a Marine.
Oh, yeah. A Marine and a Duck fan.
Both can be true.
It's okay, Mac, we still don't hold it against you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you, Mr. Seth. I think we're done embarrassing you.
All right,
Well, at least your boss is. We'll get him to stop for a little bit.
fair enough.
All right, thank you for your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
All right, up next, Antfarm. Miss Wheeler, Nupa. Got some exciting news for us.
I brought some handouts, just.
Hi, Nupa.
Hey.
Hi.
Long
I'm well, how are you?
Good to see you guys.
How's retirement?
It's busy.
Yep.
If you're running low, I can make some copies for you.
I think I have enough.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
And the mic is all yours.
So I think people know me. I'm Numpa, the Executive Director of Antfarm, and this is Kim Wheeler, the Executive Director of Antfarm. That sounds like a good way to start. So I think many people know that we've been in succession planning for about 2 years plus for me to leave, but nobody really knew that because we've just been working as a team figuring it out. And I don't know exactly when we showed up in Molalla, but probably around that time. And Kim has been on the board of directors and our president of our board for many years, so has been right there with me from start to finish. We're gutting the building in Sandy, and Kim came in and like, who are you and what are you doing? So she's fierce in that way. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit because you've got the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, thank you for allowing us to be here. I really appreciate it, and it's that time to give a full report of what we've been doing. So, in our youth and family, our building right next door, we have been doing a lot of tutoring and reaching out to the youth with the middle school and the high school. We're doing more art classes. We've got a wonderful man named Oswaldo. He is doing guitar lessons, and the other day I looked, I think there was like 10 or 12 youth in there doing guitar lessons, which is really cool. We had an event in Sandy where we celebrated Nueva Futuro, which is one of our programs that we have. And all the youth came out there and all played, and it was absolutely beautiful. So we're trying to offer more classes, more things for our youth as far as life skills. We just put together a curriculum for life skills that we'll have youth go through. We'll probably implement that this summer. We're going to do, it's not quite the summer work program that we've had because those funds were cut, but it will be a summer camp type program where kids can come in. We'll do Community Connect. We'll do some life skills curriculum, some art classes, and volunteering in the communities. So that is something we're getting ready to put together. We just started peer support. So we have a young man that's been with Antfarm for a long time, and so he's gonna be running that. We're doing what's called Empowered Youth with a capital U, where youth can come together and they can talk about what they want in their community, what they're dealing with, and then problem solve with some help with and guidance with mentors. We have our workforce. I'm going to have you talk about workforce because I'm still
Figuring it out?
figuring it out.
Well,
yes.
I mean, one of the things I want to say about like the youth services too that Kim hasn't really spoke to, and that is that we don't really talk enough about the crisis intervention work that actually happens kind of embedded in an art class or a guitar class. And I know that there's been several real serious crises that have occurred in Molalla with youth. Nothing to do with homeless people, having fully to do with young kids and young people. The Molalla police force were right there for us.
They were awesome, yeah.
When we've had to call for some support. But we've had some kids cutting. Molalla has, every town has kids cutting. But there's kids cutting, we've had some suicidality. And so it's been really good to see that, although it's kind of like tame when we do some of the classes that we do, our place, the 209 Kennel is starting to be seen as a place that it's safe and that people can go to. Families are reaching out more and more as well, so that's pretty exciting. Workforce development, many of you have met Neil. He's with us still and just blowing it up. We just got almost $1.5 million in fuels reduction work. And I think there's going to be a crew out of Molalla, I'm pretty sure there is, that we've been predominantly working in the Mount Hood corridor. But it's like we are kind of known as the premier crew in the state of Oregon. So that's been pretty exciting. Neil's put that together. I mean, it gives me anxiety every time I look at any of his films. These kids are up on top of Douglas firs, cutting tops off of them, and I'm just like, my gosh, man, no, time to retire, because it's pretty wild. But all getting certifications. Many of them are now going into Sawyer work and different types of. That crew is really taken off. We've also got a construction crew now with contractors in Estacada. We're actually running a class out of the high school. And so we've made connection here in Molalla as well, wanting to do some work with that. The healthcare state program that Neil's got involved in, I don't know exactly what's happening here, but I know that there's been a few kids involved in that. And that's a program where kids are wanting to go into healthcare, and they can, just like the internship we did with the city, but it's just in a different sector at this point. So workforce development, we're starting back into Community Connect. We pulled it back for a little while there. We've been working a lot in the BLM land right up here, but we're now starting to get a crew out on Community Connect for seniors that need help.
Another thing that we do is called CWP, which is through Clackamas County Workforce. We have people in each hub now that help the youth find jobs. We teach them to go through the process. We really have a good conversation with them to see what it is that they want to explore. And with this program, they can get hired on with a business, and the grant pays the first 100 hours for this youth. So it's a win for the business. They get somebody, that they're not having to pay their wage. They're checking out to see if this is going to be a good fit. And then it's also a win for the youth because they're exploring areas that they might be interested. They may say, this isn't for me, but it's something we've implemented to put in each of our hubs. So, do you have any questions so far on anything? No?
I think you're good to go.
Okay. Another thing that we have been really, it's really expanded out here is connecting with the Latino communities. We do food boxes, we're doing English classes, music lessons, and just, there's such a big community out here for that, and so it's been really fun getting to know these families and what their needs are, and just giving them direction and help them along the way. So that's one area that we've really expanded a lot on. We do ongoing outreach with them and one-to-one support as well. As far as the vision of what we have here is our kids in the rural areas suffer. I don't care if you're in Sandy, Welch's, you know, everywhere. They don't get the opportunities that kids get in the Portland areas. You know, it's a lot of the services aren't available, and so we're really able to bring that to the youth. We're really able to kind of make up for what is not offered through, you know, some of the schools, you know, some of the art programs. We're doing driver's ed, not driving, but helping them to get the tests going. So we're always thinking of ways that we can propel our youth forward.
Well, I think I would like to add to that too. It's like when I first started Antfarm, one of the things that was kind of a common narrative was kids have to go to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go to Portland. It's like, no, they don't. And we don't want them going to Portland. I mean, I don't want to say it like that, but we want them staying home if possible. And and a lot of the businesses felt like they couldn't necessarily trust the kids that we were working with in Sandy. Maybe Mollalla's different, but Sandy, yeah. So it was really an interesting thing because we really made it our mission to say, no, we need to like provide any kind of activity, any kind of anything that's offered in Portland so that kids don't feel like they have to leave, and especially for employment, because that was the number one factor that we discovered over and over again. We had a grant with Ford Family Foundation, and one of the things that kept coming up was through that work in talking to businesses is that we couldn't keep kids in the community. That they felt like they had to go where the colleges are, where the work is, that kind of thing. So I feel pretty excited about the idea that we've got and like our complement of staff are from each town.
Mm-hmm.
So our staff here are from Molalla. They're not from Sandy coming over here. And then we're providing all of the services in each of the hub.
Mm-hmm.
So Kim's really instrumental in doing a lot of that work, and I'm really excited to have you with us doing this.
Thank you.
So.
And, you know, as far as community involvement, we do, like I said, food boxes, we've done that. We have volunteers that are coming in that are offering to help with art classes or financial literacy classes. We just offered that. And then we've been in the 4th of July parade, the Apple Fest, Pumpkin Patch, Christmas parade. And these are just so much fun for the youth because they feel a belonging, but then they can go out and be part of the community as well. So we'll just continue doing that and building on that.
We also have Celebrate Molalla and National Night Out coming up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And they were part of, you were part of Celebrate Molalla last year.
Yeah.
And I noticed I got returned my email addresses, they bounced back, so I'll get in touch with you.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. I think that's, any questions?
Things are happening.
The 4th of July parade, do you march or do you have a float?
We had a float.
Oh, what was it?
It was a couple different characters. I think we had,
Characters are right.
huh?
Characters are right. They're just kind of glued together.
Who are the little yellow guys with the eyeball?
Minions.
Minions, yeah. So we had, we did some other.
We have minions.
I don't know. We had some of them dressed up like that, and then in the Christmas parade we had Santa on our float. Yeah, we just try to have fun and really involve the kids and get their ideas.
Kim's gonna dress up as a clown next year. We can put that on record. That's one of the new tasks for the executive director in Molalla. To write on the
You never did that.
I think I did a few times.
Kim doesn't like clowns.
Pardon?
I didn't think Kim liked clowns.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, we appreciate you guys being
Yeah,
so
we do.
supportive. The building, just being supportive of what we're doing. You know, it hasn't always been easy. None of this is, and so we just keep moving forward and doing the good work that we're trying to do, and just support all the youth that are here, so.
How's the grant going?
which one?
The one that we signed the letter off for?
Oh, for the,
It's going great. So, you know, we did purchase a building here in Molalla. And we've got the place, and we purchased a place in Estacada. Again, what's interesting about that, great is a bit relative because I love the people of Clackamas County, and yet we're working, you know, a lot of negotiation, a lot of discussions, a lot of planning, a lot of. But it's happening. The way that I think I would want you all in the community to see the resource center is kind of like, so I don't know how to say this, but I'm an occupational therapist, and one of the things that we do is we try to put meaning and purpose into people's lives, disability, kids, and so I always dreamed when we started Antfarm that it would be like this center for occupational health, and kind of this place where people could come and work and play and get along and enjoy each other's company. And so we're seeing the resource centers in the 3 towns very much that way, to say like, we need a space for people to be able to come, and you can get whatever you need there. Right now, I think many of you have heard the stories, but we've got DHS workers sitting in our cafe in Sandy. And they find it very successful to meet with people in an ordinary setting, not with that nonprofit, worn down carpet, people smoking out front kind of thing. So we're pretty excited about it because we're taking our time and we're working with the county, and we've got a really strong team. Neil really wants to see kids building on all these projects. And so we're kind of negotiating that around procurement in the county right now. But we'd love to see our kids get involved in them.
I think, aren't we getting involved with the high school?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
we are.
trying to get kids to come and,
So yeah, so that project's going pretty well. It's a lot slower than I would like, but you know, it is what it is. And sometimes that's not a bad thing because it gives people a time to adjust a little bit and figure out what it is. So.
Did you ever negotiate with the county on the siding?
That is in the
I
discussion.
knew that was gonna come up.
Yes and no.
That'd be
You know,
a great project for youth.
absolutely. And Neil, and we've talked to Neil about it, and we're committed to figuring out what we got to do with that. Adam has left, you know, the
Yes.
county. He's no longer there, and he was the original, we can do this thing. So we're still in those discussions. But as you know, sometimes those things take a bit,
Sometimes they take a while.
a while too.
And persistency, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely working on that.
So a couple weeks ago, you invited us out to your event. And I personally just wanted to say thank you. That was an incredible event. And I have one question leaving the event. Did Herman and Alicia get their child moved over here?
Yes, and they've both been hired at Antfarm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
In Estacada.
Their daughter came in on Sunday. Excuse me, and, excuse me. And actually, we're doing a housewarming party for them this weekend. But yeah, Herman was hired in the fuels, and Alicia in the housing, which is perfect. She's a young woman that aged out of foster care, and you would never know. She doesn't come across as a victim or anything like that. She's just very compassionate and helpful. So she's a perfect fit for our housing.
This couple moved to Oregon from Indiana.
Indiana.
And when they got here, they used everything they could to get here, and everything fell out from under them. And one way or another, they found Antfarm, and they got into housing. And then this Sunday, their daughter who's been in Indiana since they've left, got to come reunite with them, and housing, jobs, the whole thing. And hearing that story was very touching. I have an issue remembering names a lot of times. And that story meant so much that I could literally remember their names. So it was a very neat story. It was a great event. You know, the venue was absolutely perfect. Would have been nice if it wasn't somebody's retirement party. But being able to come and congratulate you and shake your hand up on stage, that meant a lot to me, because
Thank you.
we've been working together 10
Quite a few
years.
yeah.
Because I think the boys were coming and visiting you right when you opened.
That's right.
So it's been it's been almost 10 years, so.
It's been a pretty powerful thing. I mean, you know, like even in that event, we ended up having 220 people show up. And I guess there was like 40 people that just came and walked in because they wanted to know what Antfarm was about. We're like, come on in, let's go.
Yeah.
So it was pretty special to have so many people show up, and to also know that like anything that I've started, it's like very strong and moving forward. And so that's the best way to leave a place. So.
I do have to say, though, he's not leaving.
Right.
I'm holding out. He's going to be a consultant for me.
For Ken.
Yeah, until the end of the year. So that would be very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you all.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I thank you too for all the work that you do with our youth here in the community. It shows, and I see it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I actually am working in Salem now some, and so I drive through Molalla every day, and I'm spotting kids now, so just, you're not really done with me yet, because if I see somebody doing something, I might just pull over and give them a little talk.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for
Thank
coming
you
in.
so
I
much.
appreciate
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Nimpa.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, up next will be public comment. Citizens are allowed up to 3 minutes to present information relevant to the city, but not listed as an item on the agenda. Prior to speaking, citizens shall complete a comment form and deliver it to the city recorder. The city council does not generally engage in dialogue with those making comments, but may refer the issue to the city manager. Complaints should first be addressed at the department level prior to addressing the city manager. Do we have any comment cards tonight?
None this evening, Mayor.
All right, moving on. We got a public hearing on ordinance number 2025-04, amending Molalla Municipal Code, section 17-3.6.030, public use area. This item requires a public hearing. I'm opening the public hearing for ordinance number 2025-04 at 7:55. The purpose of this hearing is to hear a staff report and listen to public testimony. Does any council member wish to acknowledge actual or potential conflicts of interest? All right, Miss Jamie, council is ready for your staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilor. I will be presenting the staff report for ordinance 2025-04, amending Molalla Municipal Code, section 17-3.6.030, public use areas. The current section of code contains 2 subsections, which are dedication of public use areas and system development charge credit, which will be replaced with the updated code language before you tonight to reflect the current policies and standards in the existing Molalla Comprehensive Plan and the Parks, Recreation, and Trail System Plan. Staff presented a draft ordinance to City Council on April 23rd, 2025. The draft ordinance was sent to DLCD at least 35 days prior to tonight's public hearing, and public notice was published in the newspaper and on the city's website at least 10 days prior. DLCD has provided initial feedback, and staff has incorporated several changes throughout the draft ordinance. And I am wondering if council has a preference on if I go through all the provisions of the ordinance again, but I know you've heard it several times before, or if you just want me to walk through the changes.
Probably just walk through the changes.
Okay, great. So in the first subsection A, which is the minimum parkland dedication requirements, The changes that we've made are for the developments that are required to dedicate parkland to the city. They are still requiring residential subdivisions, master plan developments, and multifamily developments to dedicate parkland. We removed the language that stated any division of land that could legally be split into 4 or more lots or parcels under the current code. And we removed this because DLCD argued that it was discretionary and not clear and objective. And then we also added a provision that middle housing land divisions pursuant to ORS 92.031 are not subject to these requirements. And then also in this subsection A, we clarified that the calculations for development densities are per net acre and not gross acre. For subsection B, which is the calculation of parkland dedication acreage, we added that each duplex shall be counted as one dwelling unit, and that's consistent with ORS 197A.420. In subsection C, for dedication procedures, we removed that prior to final plat approval or building permit issuance, the applicant shall clear, fill, and/or grade all parkland to the satisfaction of the city, install sidewalks adjacent to any street, and seed the parkland. DLCD, again, said this was not clear and objective. We addressed some of these standards in the next subsection. Subsection D, which is the minimum parkland standards. The changes, we added the following provisions. For parkland that abuts an existing or proposed right-of-way within the development, the applicant shall install sidewalks on the parkland adjacent to any street per the applicable standards in the Molalla Municipal Code and the 2018 City of Molalla Transportation System Plan as amended from time to time. And for parkland that does not abut an existing or proposed right-of-way within the development, the applicant shall meet the applicable standards in Chapter 17-3.3, Access and Circulation. There were no changes to subsection E, which is the fee in lieu of dedication, and no changes to subsection F, which is the calculation of fee, which will be done by resolution that'll be forthcoming to you. So for amendments to the zoning map or code, there are 4 criteria which must be met, so I'll just briefly go through those. Criteria A, if the proposal involves an amendment to the comprehensive plan, the amendment must be consistent with the statewide planning goals and relevant Oregon administrative rules. And this proposal does not involve an amendment to the comprehensive plan, so this criterion does not apply. Criterion B, the proposal must be consistent with the comprehensive plan, which it is. Specifically, the proposed code amendment implements the Park and Recreation Policies 2.1 and 2.2 in the 2014 Molalla Comprehensive Plan, which was amended by Ordinance 2025-03 adopting the Parks Plan. Criterion C, the City Council must find the proposal to be in the public interest with regard to community conditions. The proposal either responds to changes in the community or it corrects a mistake or inconsistency in the subject plan or code. The current code is inconsistent with the policies set forth in the comprehensive plan, as it does not require the developers to provide parkland or pay a fee in lieu, and does not require developers to meet the updated standard of 7 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. So this criterion is met. And criterion D also applies to the transportation planning rule compliance, which is for an update to the comprehensive plan or zoning map, which this does not entail. So this criterion does not apply. And so if there are any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them.
LCD has no sense of humor, do they? Any questions? Anything you need to add, Mac?
No, it's, well, I will add something. No, but yes. The changes that were made substantially were in order to bring this into compliance with statute. You noticed that Jamie cited ORS 92.031 for middle housing, and I think she spoke to the fact that duplexes are counted as one unit. Both of those are state laws that if this ordinance doesn't have that in there, it's not legal and it's going to get kicked back and or challenged, and we would very, very likely lose. I can't, say whether or not we would or not, but I think we would very, very, very likely lose at LUBA. So the changes were basically mostly in part mostly due to the 27 new statutes that have come out of DLCD's world into the state statutes over the last year and a half. Sometimes we lose track of some of the nuances that they might apply to, especially if we haven't been applying those nuances ourselves because we didn't have the code language. So I just wanted to point to that a little bit and let you guys know that that's where most of those changes came from, was the same stuff we've been talking about, how there's been, I think it's 27, that might not be the right number, but a ton of statutes coming out regarding housing and this sort of thing. So anyways, we just made this compliant with that stuff.
Yeah, then you're stuck behind the curveball,
Yes, sir.
on top of everything else you have to do. I love our state. All right, does council members wish, too far, I'm way too. Does council have any questions for staff? All right. Public comment is now open. If there is anyone that would like to speak in favor or opposition, please come to the mic, state your name, address, comments, whether you are in favor, opposed, or neutral. And I see nobody, so I will close this public hearing at 8 p.m. And up next, just had to check something. Okay. We'll go straight into ordinances. Ordinance number 2025-04, amending Molalla Municipal Code, Section 17-3.6.030, public use areas. Ms. Jamie, do you have anything else you'd like to report?
Nope.
All right. Having held a public hearing for this ordinance, we are ready to hold our first reading. Is there a motion to approve, amend, or deny ordinance number 2025-04, amending Molalla Municipal Code, Section 17-3.6.030, public use areas?
Make a motion, we conduct a first reading of ordinance number 2025-04, amending Molalla Municipal Code Section 17-3.6.030, public use areas.
Second that.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion? All right. Christie, we call the roll?
Counselor Bartholomew,
Aye.
Council President Vermillion,
Aye.
Counselor Childress,
Aye.
Counselor Schenkel,
Aye.
Counselor Gilmer,
Aye.
Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Thank you. Vote passes 6-0.
As we have a unanimous vote, may I have a motion to hold the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2025-04, amending Molalla Municipal Code Section 17-3.6.030, public use areas?
I move that we hold the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2025-04, amending Molalla Municipal Code, Section 17-3.6.030, public use areas.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? All right. Christie, we call the roll?
Counselor Gilmer,
Aye.
Counselor Schenkel,
Aye.
Counselor Childress,
Aye.
Council President Vermillion,
Aye.
Counselor Bartholomew,
Aye.
Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Thank you. Vote passes 6-0.
All right. Molalla Sanitary, you want to come up? Mr. Huff, we'll
As
handle your staff
they're
report.
coming up here, I just wanted to say a couple of things. We placed something in front of you, which is something that I think would be very difficult for us to accomplish if not for the assistance of Molalla Sanitary. We've done that every year. I think, things changed during COVID, and it actually probably works better out here right now at Bolander Field. The other thing is that if you remember at the beginning of the meeting, you saw some price changes from Clackamas County. It was on the consent agenda, but there's nothing we can do about it. But that all affects them.
Right.
So, anyway.
Well, thank you. I'm Pam Bloom. I'm the owner of Molalla Sanitary Service. And this is Will Mathias, who is the CFO, and he'll give the presentation.
All right.
Thank you, Pam. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us. We have been doing business here for several decades. Very proud of the work that we do. Proud to be, a part of this city. Grateful and appreciate that you allow us to come in tonight to request this rate adjustment. And I believe we'll explain the need for the adjustment fairly well. I know rate adjustments are hard and they impact folks, but one thing you'll see as we talk through this is we've tried our best to keep rates low for the residents here. So in the Molalla Municipal Code, City Council approves any rate adjustments, and it does give some guidance on how to consider those. Among that is cost of providing services, anticipated increases in cost, which when we come forward with something that is anticipated, it's really something that is known and measurable, not something that is speculative that we're going to incur. And then the rate charged in other nearby cities or counties. And those are really the main criteria we'll focus on. The main thing, really the main reason that we're in is for several years, we have benefited from a very, very favorable disposal rate in Woodburn, which we've passed through in the rates as well. And this year, the site we take our disposal to said, hey, we have to do an increase and adjust closer to a market rate. And that increase, it'll come in two parts. The largest part, July 1st, and then again, January 1st. And then every year after that, they'll tie it to an index and give us hopefully a small adjustment based on the index. But for this year, we'll see almost a 30% increase. And disposal is 34% of our cost structure. So anytime you have that large of an increase on that big of a piece of your financial statement, that's something that we would have a really hard time working with. So, and that is the reason that we're in for a request. That is the primary reason, but really it's the reason. I don't know if we'd be in here absent that. But to give you an idea, in 2022, and the last time we were here before council to talk about a rate adjustment, we were looking at 2022 financial numbers. Our disposal cost was $607,000 for the year, and in 2025 it'll be $736 approximately, and in 2026 with the full rollover of the July increase, it'll be $856,000. So that's $250,000, which is just a large impact for our company. However, as I said before, we've been receiving a really generous disposal rate, which we passed through in the rates. We did shop the rate to see if there was something better out there than what the new increased rate is. And I'll tell you, it's still the best. That new rate July 1st, it'll be $119.50 a ton. It'll go up to probably somewhere around $125 a ton in January. The next closest rate is $136 per ton, and in Oregon City, where we also operate, that rate is $162 a ton. So the rate that they're giving us is still very good, and it still keeps Molalla rates low even with this adjustment, and really it keeps them low and the best rates around. And I'll talk through that as well. Some of the other cost increases that we've seen, we did have, since our last time in here, we had our first post-COVID. I know nobody really wants to talk about COVID, that's history, but our first post-COVID collective bargaining agreement negotiation, and so that was it was larger than normal because there was, inflationary increases in those labor negotiations. Also, our trucks have gone from 325,000 to 460,000 now. So we've seen some large increases, but disposal is really the primary impact we're seeing. So I'll just talk for a moment about city rate comparisons, and I know they're in the packet as well. Although there is one update to what is in the packet, Canby recently approved a rate adjustment, and so their rates have actually will be going up July 1st from what is in the packet. But the rate we are proposing, most residents in Molalla are in a 35-gallon can, cart size, and that's almost half the residents are in that size cart. And that rate currently is $27.76, and we are proposing for that rate to go to $31.92. That $31.92 is 2.5% lower than the next lowest rate, which, let's see, that is in Marion County, rural. And then it's 31% lower than the highest rate on this list. The comparison jurisdictions that we have are Clackamas County District Rural, Marion County Rural, Silverton, and Canby. So it's still a very favorable rate compared to other cities. We hope to continue that on, and so I'll end where I started. Is I know rate adjustments are hard for all of us, and we certainly don't like coming in and asking for them, but the need is there with the disposal increase. So with that, the request we're making is 15%, and take any questions you have.
Council have any questions? Christy, when will this come to a vote?
Right now,
Oh.
I know it's not in your script, sorry.
Okay.
So,
Give me
Tonight.
I'll ad-lib it.
Could you?
You can.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be
Just do it like you do every other vote.
Yeah. See what I have to put up with? All right. I make a motion that we approve Molalla Sanitary's rate increase of 15%.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? All right, Christy, will you call the vote?
Counselor Gilmer,
Aye.
Counselor Schenkel,
Aye.
Counselor Childress,
Aye.
Council President Vermillion,
Aye.
Counselor Bartholomew,
Aye.
Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote passes 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys, especially after seeing the comparison for trash day here.
Yes, I'd like to say something
Go
if I
for it.
might.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry you endured my diatribe earlier about rate increases.
Kinda scared.
Difficult to follow. But I want to tell you what a privilege it is to work with vendors such as yourselves. We've had a long relationship with your company, and it's much more than just a company that gives service. It's a company that partners with us, and we appreciate that so very much.
Thank you.
5 years ago at COVID, or 5 or 6, we had to start doing our annual spring cleanup a little differently than we did when the trucks used to go door to door picking up, whatever the people would throw out on the curb. And that has been such a tremendous event for us. It has grown every year. We broke records this year, once again, with people bringing their trash out, and the number of cars, the number of vehicles we serve is just unbelievable. And we couldn't do that without your partnership. And so I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart how much I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. We love this community.
We do.
And
the
you
people
guys
that are in
have
it.
fantastic people who work for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those guys they are so wonderful to work with those days.
And they're local to us. I mean, they're keeping jobs in our community. And every time I torment them, when are you guys ready for another driver? We're not hiring, Mayor, sorry. So that speaks a lot about the type of business you run.
Well, thank you.
Well, I'll pull a Mac here and just say that that really is the leadership of Pam
Yes.
and how much she cares about the people that work for her and the people that we serve, so.
Well, thanks,
And
Will.
it's genuine, it is.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah,
You
we
bet.
really appreciate you and partnering with our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, up next will be staff communication. Miss Jamie, do you have anything you'd like to communicate tonight?
I do not.
All right. Seth?
Not really, but if anybody wants to come tour the plant, let me know. It is pretty cool to see in person. Now that it's in full swing, every day there's something new.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Closed-toed shoes, folks.
Hard hats and vests.
Christy, you want to go next?
Sure, I was just thinking that maybe as the city's risk manager, you could refrain from tormenting people while they're volunteering for us. So, you just said that to.
What?
What?
To Will, that you were tormenting his employees.
Oh, I wasn't tormenting him.
It's a joke.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, you were going on about tormenting. I was like, la, la, la. Three
Yeah,
meetings in a row, what can I say? We've spent too much time together lately.
Have anything to report tonight?
That's it.
All right. Mr. Corthell?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Kelly did a great job of getting you updated on the wastewater treatment plant. So you guys know that's on time, on schedule, and you got to see some pictures as well about what's going on there, so I won't go there. But the water intake project, another really big and important infrastructure project to the city. We're moving into our second charrette, and if someone figures out what that means besides meeting, please let me know.
That's what it means.
Yeah, so, at any rate, they insist on calling it a charrette. To me, it seems like a meeting. But, at any rate, we are wrapping up the kind of the engineering process of the pre-design. And that will be the time to start coming with you guys and sharing the findings and the different things that have been happening, and been studied there. So, it's gonna start to come before you guys to look at options and what all that different stuff means. So, that's going to be moving forward to you soon. Bolander Field, those improvements that you guys authorized a few meetings back are, well, for all intents and purposes, they're complete. We need to get some new light standards in there. There's a few light standards we're waiting on, so everything, materials take time. And then there's a little bit of planting to do. It's just a hedgerow in front, not even a hedgerow, just a few bushes out in front of that ADA parking area. So the ADA parking area has been resurfaced, restriped. It looks beautiful. Those removable bollards in 3 places, both on the road and then the old main gate. So those can all come out, and you can kind of adapt that how you need for whatever event it is that you're doing. But the big thing that it does, and I don't know if you guys saw the news this last weekend about Liverpool, but apparently there was another vehicle-borne incident. They're saying that it wasn't terrorism, which I think is a good thing if they're coming to that conclusion. But at any rate, it's just another really good example of why that was such an important project, because it seems to be the trend. And so I think that will go a long way to make people feel better about going to events and to keep them safe, really, if something, God forbid, were to happen. And then the new gazebo at Clark Park is up and in, and they finished the path work today. So there's an ADA path now that comes from that gazebo and ties into the other path. It was kind of, we stood back and looked at it and we're like, well, how's anyone with a wheelchair ever gonna get in this thing? So the path became a necessity, so that is finished up and curing. So yeah, that work up there is pretty much knocked out. Chief Yelkes Park continues to move along well. We got all of our signage in. It's stored and waiting for installation for the contractor to be ready. And once they finish that groundwork, they can start getting that stuff in. We're expecting delivery of the play structure itself circa mid-June here. And we have been kind of getting everything organized and sequenced so that we don't have to drive heavy equipment across a new parking lot to put in the playground structure. So there's some sequencing things there that we wanted to make sure we were preserving some of that asphalt and concrete to make sure it wasn't getting driven over. Even though we protect it when we do it, there's still always that chance you're gonna crack something, and that really stinks when you've just built a brand new project. So, to come back in and rip it up and fix it. So anyways, that stuff's all moving along very well. And then if anyone has any questions beyond that, let me know, or you know where to find me if you think of some.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Huff?
Just a couple of things I want to bring up with Bolander Field. The idea that was just completed was really an idea of your staff. Nothing I ever came up with. With Mac and his people and Lieutenant Call came up with that design for the safety of the community during events. It can be altered and changed depending on what kind of event it is. You know, Celebrate Molalla is a little bit different than a buckaroo or a Mexican rodeo, and so it can be altered or changed. And you just have good staff that think, and that's becoming a lost talent in the world today, and we don't seem to have that problem here. I also think that one of the reasons why these improvements at Bolander Field are good for the community is because we're using Bolander Field for much more than just 4 days for the buckaroo. It's a highly used location today, and we needed to pay attention to it. If it was only 4 days a year, but now it's not. And they did a great job. It looks great. And the other thing about the pavilion over there, you know, we have a great partner in MCC. And in fact, I think when you and I were sitting in the conference room was the day we came up with the pickleball courts with MCC. So they're a great partner. They want nothing more than to be a member of this community and make it better. And I'm just glad that they think that way about the city of Molalla, that we can continue to do that, because the pavilion wouldn't have been built right now if it wasn't for MCC. So, so it's all a good thing. It's a really good thing. We got good people in this community, and we should all be thankful that they're here. Just like the folks from Molalla Sanitary. It's good stuff here. That's all I have.
Bless you.
Thank you. All right. Any questions? All right. Council Bartholomew, do you have anything to report tonight?
No, sir.
All right. Council Gilmer. Council Schenkel.
Nothing.
Council Childress.
Well, we opened up registration for vendors for Celebrate Molalla last week, and we've got 31 by Saturday. So they were ready to get signed up and get going, and I was glad to see that. And that's about the next thing that's on the table other than National Night Out. So we're anxious to see it bigger and better this year, grow it every year. That's the plan. Give this community more to come out for and more to see and to do. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Council President Vermillion.
Yeah, speaking of Bolander Field and Clark Park, this morning I had to substitute for, excuse me, a 5th grade class that was on a field trip. So I sat in the back of the bus and drove past those 2 locations, and it was very impressive. Nice to see.
Looks nice.
It does. It looks really good. The last Krispy Kreme sale for the park CPC sold out. The profit was $648.68. And our next
$648 profit.
You get the feeling this town likes
He was
donuts.
asking.
Yeah. The next meeting will be at Fox Park, June 19th at 5:30. So if you want to get involved with your parks, that's where we'll be at. And let's see, a couple Saturdays ago, on May 17th, our mayor mentioned that earlier, my wife and myself, along with the mayor, attended Antfarm's fundraiser titled Strengthening Our Roots. Very impressive event. I was really surprised at the turnout and how well it was put together and the stories that were told there. It's really touching. So I was really pleased and enjoyed the event. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, sir. I have a question for Christy, and you're still laughing at me. So good. We have an event coming up next month.
The dinner?
Do we have any
More of a
information?
question.
Do we have any information on it yet, or is it?
I would like to reserve that for
Another meeting.
or potentially an email.
Okay, perfect,
Miss Suzanne and I are working on that diligently.
perfect.
And we have made some really great progress, but I'm not quite prepared to
Perfect.
make a public announcement.
I just keep
Thank you.
forgetting about it, and I just happen to remember it.
Yes.
Sir,
I'm going to add something that we learned of Friday on this thing. And you remember when we all sat in here with some OGEC training?
Yeah.
It was a joyous occasion for all of us, correct?
Good one, forget.
Well, we've had another salvo from that agency, and what it has to do with is if we provide snacks or food during a meeting, you know, we'll do that every once in a while. If we do goal setting, we'll bring lunch in or something like that. So the question is the interpretation that's coming out of that agency is whether or not an event like this that we're talking about with the city dinner actually can happen with the way OGEC is interpreting these rules. So, not to worry though, I'm not putting up too much of a stubborn wall this time with these things. So we did, I did for a little bit.
Your nose is
he's
good.
got ran over.
We did get a sample policy. And what our attorney has recommended is that we adopt a policy. I'm not sure what for, but that will be maybe on your agenda for your next meeting. It's a
I
policy.
didn't even think about that
So,
OJEC thing.
so we're trying to handle that, which it's not a happy place throughout the state. It's not a happy place in LOC. It's not a happy place with LOC's director. And it's like, are these people just sitting in a room and coming up with ideas that will destroy 75 years of local government? I know.
You're on the verge of a rave.
That's what we're dealing with.
I mean, we're talking about if you bring a Subway sandwich in for a working lunch and there's 7 of you and it costs, $5, that you're each gonna get 85 cents put on your check and taxed. It's not, I just wanna be clear, it's not, the city buys me lunch like once or twice a year, and that's at your goal setting and maybe one other long meeting that we
Christmas.
have where food's needed,
Wow.
right? It's
Just saying.
crazy.
Sorry I brought it up.
Yeah.
So along with, budget committee meetings
Yeah.
and
Yeah, no, I
so
no, I
many
got it.
things, that may be why I forgot to put a motion in for the sanitary rate adjustment tonight.
It's all good.
Dan and I were conversing over the
Yeah.
CCA meeting a lot.
It's getting ridiculous.
It is.
So I'll segue out of this and pick up my pride. I want to update council on something that's going to be coming to us at our next council meeting. Back in 2022, 2023, we're not exactly sure when, our state legislature brought out a program, and it was named Pilot. And what the pilot program is places like Bear Creek Apartments. I don't know, is the best term a tax deferral? In a nutshell, the property values of that apartment complex, the increase, not what it was before they were built, but the increase, which is roughly $25,000 this year. Is that, did we figure?
In taxes, in value, it's substantial.
In value.
Right.
Substantial.
But $25,000 of tax revenue that should be coming to the city, should be coming to our police bond, should be coming to the fire department, should be coming to the schools. I'm gonna be really blunt. Clackamas County Commission hijacked it. This ballot measure, I don't know another term. It's less than what I'm really thinking they did. But what the state legislature did was give them this power. And I talked with Commissioner Savas 2 weeks ago, and I said, hey, you know, I want to discuss this. And he said, well, I need to get my staff back to me. And I said, well, I really want our money back. I said, I kind of feel like you hijacked it. And he goes, well, you guys are still getting the taxes that it would be before this was built. And I said, yeah, great. I said, we got 150 units going in that are gonna need police services, that are gonna have kids that are going to school, that are gonna need fire services, that should be paying, I think, Mr. Huff figured out it should be about $1,600 a year toward our police bond. And it's not just this year this money will be missing, it's for the next 40 years. And Commissioner Savas replied that when this was brought up to them, that he was either told by Chair Smith or staff that, because he said he asked what did the cities think about this? And he was told that the cities all were in agreement on this. Well, if the cities were in agreement on it, we would have a resolution saying they could do this. They can't just take city tax dollars. We are the authority of city tax dollars. So we're gonna have this on the agenda at the next council meeting. And I would like council to direct staff into talking with our city attorney and finding out some recourse to end this and possibly get our $25,000 back. At last check, the $25,000 was headed toward Westland Wilsonville School District, Lake Oswego School District, and was it North Clackamas?
It basically was split amongst every taxing entity in the county that
except for us
doesn't provide services in Molalla. And like
Yeah.
the city was getting like $280. Don't quote me on the numbers, but
Yeah.
it was like this. The fire department was getting like $105, while Lake Oswego School District was getting like $3,500 from a Molalla property.
Yeah.
And we discovered this on the tax rolls, and we're like, well, someone must have, there must be a typo. Something in the system glitched. I don't know. And so when we went and talked to them, we discovered, no, it was not a typo.
No, it wasn't. I think, first of all, the money was split as was going to all these other taxing districts. And it's 25, so the owner of this property, because the Clackamas County Housing Authority was given 1% ownership on that property, they were eligible for this program. And so we weren't invited to make a comment. And the problem isn't as much, because I think we've gotten them to recognize they really made a big gaffe when all the money was going to the other taxing districts. And so what I have been informed to date is the county commissioners will distribute those funds in June, because they've already been paid. So the developer makes a $25,000 payment every year for 40 years. And then the county housing authority takes that money and gives it to the county assessor, and then the county assessor distributes the funds. the problem with that is we may get reimbursed our share of that for this year and the next year, but that property is gonna be valued at a higher rate by year 3 at least, if not year 2. And by the time you get out to 40,
It ain't gonna be worth nothing.
we're not gonna get even a pittance of that. And the problem I see in these things is that the communities that are gonna, or the taxing districts that are gonna be suffering, or the taxing agencies, are the ones providing the multitude of the services to those folks.
Right.
Our police department, our fire department, the schools, because theirs is reduced. And any of the programs that actually provide the services won't get the actual funding. I don't care if it was, we get the money it was worth when it was a field. And it wasn't always a field. There were actually structures on that property
Right, there were homes.
before those apartments went in. And so I don't know what they were told when they approved it, but they didn't ask us. They didn't come to you guys and say, what do you think about this? And I don't know how, because we discovered this, we just discovered it by chance.
Kind of sneaky.
Yeah. And I've sent in one letter asking, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna tell you guys, kind of give you some more of the nuts and bolts of the program really quick. So the way this pilot is payment in lieu of taxes, right, and it's a state statute. And basically what it does, like Dan said, gives you, 40-year set tax rate, typically below what the standard would be. So, but it allows cities, so they could come to you and you guys could approve that program inside the city for a particular development. The county can do the same in unincorporated Clackamas County. Or if there's a government housing authority that's a partial owner of the development, then they can do it unilaterally. So the 1% that Clackamas County got of that thing allowed them to come inside the city limits and do
What they
some
did.
things. Which is also interesting when you look at a 1% ownership interest in an affordable housing development and what could possibly be the purposes of that for Clackamas County. And you take the list, it's pretty short. It might even be just one thing, but I don't know. I can't think of much more beyond that 1% does for any, a government housing authority. I can't imagine, but maybe I could be ignorant. I'm not super versed on it, but.
So there's really 2 or 3 parts to this. The first part is, I think we kind of solved, they haven't made a decision yet on the appropriate distribution of the tax dollars. That decision is supposed to be made in June, which is next week or the week after.
Along with our behavioral specialists,
Well, that too.
2 more weeks.
Yeah. But the secondary component of this is what Mac's talking about, is what made them think that they could become the taxing authority for inside the city limits. Oh, wait, we have a statute that allows us to do that. But they didn't tell you all they were going to do that. And when we started asking questions about this, Mac started first, didn't get anywhere. I went straight to the county administrator. Nobody really knew.
So our next meeting, Mr. Huff, can you bring some options in that council can?
If we have them, of options, you're meaning from
Like-
the attorney or what?
Yeah.
Yeah. If we have them, if we get something back, I mean, he may call us and he may get back to us like, I don't know what to tell you, it's a state statute. So we may have to be our own attorneys. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I want that.
We'll do what we can. We are gonna bring some information that explains this a little bit better. Mac's written some stuff, I've written some stuff, we've gotten some things back from the county, at least at this point, so we know what it is. And Molalla is the only city in Clackamas County that they did this in. Christie wants to go home.
Yeah.
No, it's not an item on tonight's agenda. It's
Right,
just we need to
right,
be
right.
cautious.
And then one last thing, I had a meeting last Friday with volunteer emergency service providers. Basically, we had Red Cross, Representative Red Cross there, CC VOAD, it's Clackamas County Volunteer Emergency, I can't remember the last one. Mountain Wave was there, Clackamas County Posse, Sheriff's Posse was there, and Chief Todd Gary, Colton Fire. We had it at Colton Fire. And we discussed, there used to be a group in Molalla and with any, especially rural cities, called CERT. And the reputation of CERT, and there was also a little different variation called NERT. It's Neighbor Emergency Response Team for NERT. Community Emergency Response Team for CERT. Anyway, our CERT team died many years ago, right after the wildfires when Lynn Blatter passed away. And so the current reputation of CERT, the fire departments don't like it because it's a very huge liability on them. And so what we came together to discuss is putting together a training, an academy, to get people trained that can help our emergency services. So for example, the past few months, many of you know that Highway 211, we've had a lot of truck wrecks. Well, just past city limits, when there's a truck wreck on 211 above Meadowbrook store, Colton Fire sits out there with the big stop and slow sign for 2 to 3 hours while the semis come out to do the recovery, the tow trucks come to do the recovery. This group would provide services, they would be certified in the flagging. They would become their own nonprofit, independent of the fire department, or if the police department, if we ever had a major evacuation like we did with the wildfires, this group would be set up with emergency operations. We could go set up and do flagging at 211 and 213 and direct traffic, you know, instead of going down 213, send them down 211 when our officers need to be banging on doors and responding to calls. There would also be training involved with we need to set up an emergency shelter for Red Cross. These people would be trained through Red Cross to be able to do that. The other group was, there's a animal emergency group that they would set up corral and fencing for evacuations on livestock. But everybody would be certified in all of that. And basically we had our first meeting. They want to continue. We basically have a board established and we're looking to bring this from Estacada to Canby. And it would service all of rural South Clackamas County. We're trying to stay out of Clackamas Fires area. They're a whole nother monster compared to, you know, our 4 and 5 little fire districts. But it would be more of a volunteer service that could aid with, if, you know, we would be building relationships with the police department, with the fire departments. So when an emergency comes, we can come out and help, and everybody would be certified from each of the groups involved. So that's what I've been up to for the community. It sometimes says I don't do very much. Anybody else have anything? All right. Well, if there's nothing else, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:45.